We're going to start back up again. Our next speaker is Rick Guidotti. He is a great friend of ours, a friend to CP of New York State and a friend to people with IDD and any differences. Rick is the founder and director of Positive Exposure, which is an innovative arts education and advocacy organization working with individuals with differences. He's also involved in various projects that highlight the beauty and humanity of all individuals. He's also working with CP of New York State on our clinician training grant that Mike mentioned earlier. And Rick is now going to speak to us about Positive Exposure and the grant. Thanks, Rick.
Oh, so excited to be here. Can everybody hear me okay? We're good? Great. So I'm Rick Guidotti. I'm the founder of Positive Exposure. This is the organization. I started out my career as a fashion photographer living in New York City, but also working and living in Milan and Paris as well. Working with great models like Claudia Schiffer for Harper's Bazaar. And I worked a lot for Marie Claire magazine. This is from Elle magazine. I did a lot of work with the House of Yves Saint Laurent in Paris. This is a portrait of Mr. Saint Laurent that's in every boutique currently, in every boutique worldwide, and an image from one of our international campaigns. From French Elle magazine, New York Style magazine, French Elle magazine once again. And of course, here's the amazing Cindy Crawford from a Revlon shoot. So it was so exciting working in the industry, working with these amazing models and these incredible clients and traveling around the world. It was great, but it was also really frustrating because I was always told who was beautiful. I was always told who the model of the moment was, and we'd have to photograph that face, and the season would change. We'd have a new face, and we'd go and photograph that new face. What was so frustrating is that I'm an artist. I never saw beauty. I continue never to see beauty just on covers of magazines. I see beauty absolutely everywhere. I was leaving my studio here in New York City one day after doing a casting for Elle magazine. I think I saw every model in the world that day. I was walking down Park Avenue, and I spotted this kid waiting for a bus. Stunning, long white hair, pale skin, gorgeous kid. She had this genetic condition called albinism. Albino was the common term that I knew. This girl, I'd never met a model that looked like this kid. She was stunning, and I wanted to grab her and say, I have to take your photograph, you're amazing. But the bus came, and she got on the bus, and she took off, and I say this at every presentation. I'm so grateful that the bus came, because she was 12 years old, and I'd still probably be in trouble. So, but anyway, the bus, I was just so enthralled with this beauty. So I went to the closest Barnes and Noble, which is just on Union Square around the corner from the studio. And I studied at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. I studied art, photography, and filmmaking. I never saw a medical textbook prior to that moment, but I thought that would be a good place to find photographs of this gorgeous kid or friends of hers that shared the same genetic condition, albinism. So I opened up a medical textbook, excited to find these images, and I opened up to the word albinism, and the first images I saw were these images. And under this red eye was the albino eye. That was the caption on that photograph. This kid did not have red eyes. She had beautiful blue eyes. And then I saw lots of photographs of cancer clinic photographs and images of people in cancer with openings, festering sores and cancers, and thinking, this is terrible. And then I started finding more and more images of kids all represented the same way, usually naked up against a wall in a doctor's office with those black bars across their eyes. Not just kids with albinism, but kids and adults through a variety of genetic conditions, but always presented the same way. I'm thinking, this is horrible. So I very quickly closed that medical textbook, put it back on the shelf, hoping to never have to see another medical textbook for the rest of my life. So I went to an encyclopedia thinking that's a good stop. But there I found the family in the circus. And the more exploring I did, the more digging I did, more research, I kept finding only negative representation of people with albinism, and especially in Hollywood. In feature films, from The Princess Bride to Powder, who had albinism because his mother was struck by lightning when she was pregnant with him, to The Matrix Reloaded, these ghost-like characters, they'd come in, they'd wreak havoc, and they'd simply disappear. Then most recently, the Da Vinci Code, it was Evil Silas driving around Paris at night shooting at people. Well, one of the first things I discovered in my research about albinism is that people with this genetic condition have an associated visual impairment. Most people with albinism are considered legally blind. So certainly wouldn't be driving around Paris at night shooting at anybody and expect to hit any of those targets. This was terrible information out there, terrible representation. But I did see that there was a support group called NOAA. It's the National Organization for albinism and hypopigmentation. I called them immediately, so excited to find an organization that supports people with albinism and their families. So I called them and said, hey, I'm a fashion photographer. Let's show the world the beauty of albinism. This is going to be amazing. And they told me to get lost very quickly. I'm a New Yorker. I don't give up quite so easy. I kept after them, asking, and they made it very clear to me early days of their fear of exploitation. That every time there was a magazine article about somebody with albinism, it was always the story about a victim. It was always sensational, always exploitative, always negative. And that was their caution. And I said, well, I have to understand. I've been doing a lot of research, and I agree with you. I can't find one positive representation. So let's do something strange here. Let's form a non-traditional partnership, fashion photographer, genetic support group, advocacy group, and together we'll collaborate and create a photographic essay that finally celebrates the beauty of albinism. And they agreed. Positive Exposure was born the day. I'm so excited. We got the support of the advocacy group. We're ready to go. In walks the first girl I'm going to photograph. Her name is Christine, and she's beautiful. Long white hair. She's about 5'9". She's stunning. But she walks into my studio with her shoulders hunched, head down, no eye contact, one-word answers. This kid had zero self-esteem as a direct result of the teasing, the bullying, and the abuse she experienced in the classroom environment every single day. And it left her with zero self-esteem. I'm thinking, how am I going to photograph this kid? She's zero. I've never met anybody with zero self-esteem. But just the day before, I had photographed Cindy Crawford on the same set in my studio for another Revlon shoot. And I thought, out of respect for this gorgeous kid, I'm going to photograph her look like I would any supermodel. So the fan went on, the music went on, and I literally just held up a mirror and I said, Christine, look at yourself. You're magnificent. And this kid looked in the mirror and she saw exactly what I saw. And she went from this to this, exploding with a smile that literally lit up New York City. This is gorgeous Christine. Christine desperately needed to change the way she saw herself. Her community desperately needed to change the way that they saw her difference. So Christine created for us a philosophy or a motto that still drives Positive Exposure 25 years later. And that motto and that philosophy is change how you see how you change. Those first images were a cover story in Life magazine called Redefining Beauty. Got lots of accolades, won all kinds of awards for it. It's identifying people from all over the world, saying, can you come visit us here in Australia? We have an albinism support group, or here in the UK, or can you help us form one in Africa or in Russia? So as I was doing my fashion work, I'd always connect with a community of people with albinism in that particular country, creating a global connection with all the albinism support groups and creating new ones, but around the globe, showing that and really kind of creating opportunities for new conversations about celebrating the beauty and richness of human diversity, starting with albinism. I received a beautiful award. I received many awards for the Life magazine piece, but one of the greatest and most honored for me anyway was to receive an award from the Genetic Alliance. The Genetic Alliance is a coalition of all the genetic support groups worldwide. It's a great honor. And as they were presenting the award to me, the president at the time said, I'm the founder and director of the Genetic Alliance as well. I'm the president of the Genetic Alliance. And as I'm looking at all these beautiful images of albinism around the world, I'm struck with the idea that there's a universal message here. This isn't just about albinism. This is about all differences. Would you have any interest in working with some of the other organizations or advocacy groups that we represent here at the Genetic Alliance? I thought, I'd love to. It's amazing. So, well, we have a conference coming up in San Antonio, Texas, for people living with chromosome 18 anomalies, or it's the Chromosome 18 Registry and Research Society when you have a chromosome anomaly. Now, fashion photographer, never heard the words chromosome and anomaly in the same sentence prior to that moment. So I went back to those. I thought it was a great idea, but I went back to those medical textbooks to find out what a chromosome anomaly looks like or what it means. And this is what I saw when I did my research. I found countless images of kids. I'm just make sure I say that okay. Oh, sorry. I found countless images of stillborns, of images, again, those images of kids with black bars across their eyes, and images of kids with cleft palates and trachs and feeding tubes and mobility issues. I'm thinking, albinism was so easy. This is terrifying. But I went to San Antonio, I committed, and I walked into the auditorium to where all these kids were being entertained by a clown on stage. And I walked in and I was instantly surrounded by kids screaming with laughter. I had these images burned in my head, but when I got there, I heard all these kids laughing. There were kids with cleft palates and trachs and feeding tubes, but they were kids, and there were kids having fun. It was amazing to witness that. And some of the kids, and I thought, where was that one giggle when I was trying to research a chromosome anomaly? It would have changed everything. These are the kids that I met that very first time. This is the amazing Pauline. Sean, who I've been photographing every year since then. Ellington, the coolest kid I know on the planet. Remy, whose senior photographs we shot a few years back. And they weren't just kids, there were kids and adults, but they were people, and they were having fun. It's like, where was that representation in the medical training? When I looked at those medical textbook photographs, I thought, there's got to be something else here. And sure enough, we created these amazing images, and I gifted the images to the organization. It was so much fun. Came back to the studio in New York City, and I was approached by Francis Collins, who was then the director of the National Human Genome Research Institute. And after his last several years working as the director of NIH, he's returning to the National Human Genome Research Institute, which is exciting. But Francis had said, we just finished mapping the people's genome, and we're going to do a big celebration here at the Smithsonian in DC at Wash. And could you create an exhibition of images of people with albinism around the globe, kind of showing the diversity within that diagnosis, and that would launch at our big party, and then it would travel to other Smithsonian sites as we launch this people's genome globally. I was like, what a great idea! But I told them about the experience that I had at the Chromosome 18 conference, and that there really is a universal message, and could we possibly invite other groups to participate? And he said, absolutely. So we did. First group that stepped up was the National Marfan Foundation. The Marfan syndrome is a connective tissue disorder. You grow very, very tall. You're at risk of an aortic dissection. You have scoliosis, long, thin arms as well. And these are the images that I saw in medical textbooks when I did my research on what Marfan syndrome was. And I understood the importance of showing how a connective tissue disorder presents itself in medical education. So I saw that photograph. I understood the value of that image, but I thought there has to be another way to give all the information that you need as a healthcare provider or healthcare provider in training to see how a connective tissue disorder presents itself, but adding back the key ingredient that's missing. And of course, that key ingredient that's missing is Billy. And here's Billy. That key ingredient is humanity, making sure that we see the person first always, and not a syndrome or a disease. This is Christopher. Everybody's an art critic, and Christopher was very specific how he wanted to be photographed. Everyone's an art. He's very proud of his long, skinny arms and his long fingers and his pectus carinatum and his scoliosis, and that's how he wanted to be photographed. An opening night of the People's Genome Celebration, his image was hanging from the ceiling in the rotunda at the museum, and it was 8 foot square. And during the festivities, it was a great party. This woman came up to me. She said, my dad has Marfan syndrome. I have Marfan syndrome. And every year we go to the beach with our friends and family, and we cover up our long, skinny arms and our presentation of Marfan syndrome with our beach gear. But after meeting Christopher, I am so buying a bikini. Change how you see how you change. Some of our other friends, this is Caleb living with achondroplasia dwarfism, a very common form of dwarfism. Great friend Nadia has a rare form of dwarfism called acromesomelic dysplasia. Nadia told me the only thing that she needed, as she was a second-year med student when I met her, the only thing she needed to be a successful physician was a stepladder. Well, she got that stepladder, and she's now Dr. Nadia, and she's amazing. Maggie and Danielle, I went to my first Costello syndrome conference. I didn't know much about Costello's, my first conference. These are the first kids that I met. It turns out it was their first conference too. And they were the first people that other one that had ever met that shared the same syndrome. And I was there when they became best friends forever, for life. And every year I go back to that conference and they're still there and they're still best friends. The only thing that's changed is they started a rock and roll band. That's Jada living with 22q11.2 deletion, the greatest giggle on the planet. Simone living with Down syndrome. My great friends from the spinal muscular atrophy campaign, when I was photographing them at a conference, they spent most of the time trying to run me over in their wheelchairs. This is after running over my left and my right foot. Lily living with Wolff-Hirschhorn syndrome. Curtis and Alex living with vitiligo, refusing to apologize for their vitiligo. Tyler with his congenital melanocytic nevus syndrome. Lucas living with Fragile X syndrome, the leading familial genetic marker for autism. That's Lucas and his dad. Ronan with Prader-Willi syndrome. Deirdre with Smith-Magenis syndrome, living with Smith-Magenis syndrome. great as a kid. Gorgeous Chloe, who is nonverbal, but Chloe actually has a CP, but nonverbal, but as you can take a look at Chloe, you can see that Chloe can communicate, doesn't need it. There are other ways to make those connections, other ways to communicate, not just verbally, and that's our gorgeous Chloe. Of course, the most amazing human rights activist and disability rights activist, Judy Heumann, old school activist and human rights activist, really shut down a building. She's in a federal building. She's also the star of Crip Camp. Hope you all saw Crip Camp Judy was one of the campers at Camp Jened, and she went on to do some amazing things. So you should check out Crip Camp if you haven't seen it. New school advocate. This is Gayton. Gayton is living with cleidocranial dysplasia, and he insists he's actually the star of Stranger Things, and he every day, every season, he writes his new contract. He has to mention cleidocranial dysplasia in at least 2 episodes each season, using his social media platform to raise awareness of his condition and all rare diseases. Working on a program with kids and adults living that are undiagnosed around the globe. Right before the pandemic, we're in West Africa with the 7 continents so far, and then that's easing up a bit. So now we're going to start traveling again, building community within the undiagnosed communities. Our great friend Kaylin, who was born with Sturge-Weber syndrome, she has it internally. So she has a seizure disorder as well associated with Sturge-Weber. See her birthmark on her face. She came to the studio to be photographed. We shot 1 million photographs that day. It was great. At the end of the shoot, her mom calls me and said, Kaylin never discusses school with me. She knows that if I hear kids are teasing her, I'm going to come in the next day swinging a baseball bat. And so, but she said, on our way home from school, from your studio, she said, Mom, kids tell me every single day I'm ugly. They tell me I'm a freak and I'm a monster, and I believe them until today. And then she mobilized, and she's going to go to her school and present positive exposure to 400 students. And she was on set with me. She was on stage with me screaming, what is normal? Creating an equation: self-acceptance equals self-esteem equals self-advocacy. This formula drives every program that we create at Positive Exposure. One of those programs is the Pearls Project, which is an online blog platform, really kind of creating opportunities for our ambassadors to talk about life from their unique perspectives.
My name is Byron. I live in the DC area. I'm 14. When I was 10 months old, I had a left hemispherectomy. I had the left half of my brain removed because I have something called Sturge-Weber syndrome. I wear a brace on my right leg and right arm. I only see out of the right side of each eye, so sometimes it's harder for me to see things on the right side. So playing sports can be frustrating because I might not see a ball coming. I didn't see that coming.
And using all of our friends are using their voices, their sense of humors, their personalities to change the way the world sees their difference. We go to many family advocacy groups, and I go to a lot of medical schools, not to teach the science, but to create opportunities to kind of teach humanity. I can actually pronounce arthrogryposis multiplex congenita. So when I go to medical schools, I present images of PJ. We started creating a brief film series called Frame: Faces Redefining the Art of Medical Education. A brief film series kind of presenting all the basic hallmark characteristics of a certain genetic condition, but as presented by someone living with that condition themselves or their families, creating, placing front row and center in medical education humanity, helping healthcare providers in training have a better understanding that that it's never what you're treating, but always who you're treating. We don't really have time to show a sample of this right now, but because I wanted to add something new that we're working on right now, which is really exciting. So I'm going to skip that, but you can go to our website, and they're listed under programs, and it's a frame. The platforms are presented with photographic images, galleries, and links to more important information or more explored information or detailed info, all under Faces Redefine the Art of Medical Education. Let's skip to this next one. We're currently working on, just finished shooting the part of this incredible experience with the Cerebral Palsy Association of New York State to create, again, an opportunity to help create better doctors and to show that there's these teaching modules that are so incredible that will help. And they're in their CME credits, but it's teaching modules that are going to help people really make that connection and healthcare providers that make those connections with the individuals living with IDD in the New York State area, which is so exciting and such a thrill to be able to work with, to hear these voices, to focus the cameras on all these individuals, helping them train healthcare providers, adding the humanity to these incredible teaching modules that are out there that are currently offered through the Cerebral Palsy Foundation of New York State. So I'd like to show you a quick sample. This is just a very brief teaser, but very exciting.
The Batman. Listening is obviously the most important. To me, the reason that that's most important, we know Kevin better than anybody. We've lived with him for 47 years. And yes, the doctor gets the records, but Kevin's medical records are in a folder that thick maybe, I don't know exactly, but it's a lot.
Common mistakes that doctors and nurses make, even though they are human and you're allowed to make mistakes. The doctors don't talk to the patient. The doctors normally talk to the parents and tell the parents what's wrong. The doctor should also talk to the patient, depending on the level of the patient's mind.
Can we create some photographs?
Sure, I love taking pictures.
I can tell that. I'm just coming right in because the light's so beautiful right now. Oh. We're going to go outside too and take a few photographs. Is that okay?
Some of the challenges we faced in the healthcare that we've had with our folks is having providers really listen to them. They do take extra time, but in a lot of cases they know what they want to say and they want to express that, and a lot of time the providers kind of answer for them, or they ask us what's been going on, even at times when the residents are actually trying to speak over us to talk to them. Or when they do give the medical advice, they'll talk to us and not talk to them. It's almost like they're not there, even though it's very important for them to express themselves.
I would like a doctor to know about a person with an intellectual disability, to know that we have the same rights as anybody else. And, we like to be asked the questions instead of the aide that's with them, to ask them the question, because we are the people that you're helping.
Doctors need to know about us, people with disabilities, that we might have a disability, but more than that, we can talk, we can explain ourselves. Just ask us a question and we will answer you. Yeah.
What's important for a healthcare provider in training to know is that the number one thing is to advocate for the patient, for the individual, because that's who we're working for. We want the best outcome. We want to be here for them.
You're a good picture taker.
I like to take a lot of pictures. I love these. They're really good.
I'm in a good mood today.
Are you really
You're
taking
really
that many?
gorgeous. Look.
Yeah.
Look good you look. I love these photos.
Daddy,
Yes.
I think you and Mommy are nice husband and wife.
Well, thank you. We think you're a good daughter.
I stopped having bad behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have to get stickers.
You don't use those anymore, do they?
No.
Because you're always having good behavior.
The best doctors we had are good
I think it's
listeners,
nice if you said
and they're
this.
compassionate, and
Daddy. You have a nice name.
they take the time to do the review. You know, when we see doctors that we've seen in the past, you know, when we go back down to New York, or even when we see the physician, they take the time to be prepared when they come in to see, so they have a question.
We fault the one or two through the years that's in a big hurry and don't have time to listen. But you know, the truth is that probably between 95 and 100% are great.
Thanks for that. We're just in the final throes of actually editing all these films. We're creating 4 to 5 films here, plus and also introduction, but again, always presenting the humanity, always presenting the perspective of our individuals that are part of our community living with IDD. They're creating the space that they need to talk about the challenges in healthcare that they're having, some of the bad and good experiences that they've had in seeking healthcare, and some of the ways to improve that and help create a better workforce of doctors that have a better understanding again of certain challenges that various individuals from our community are facing. So we're really excited we're working on this right now, and with all the space, I apologize for not captioning this film totally yet, but we're in the process of that. So next time you see these films, they'll all be, of course, captioned. We have a gallery in New York City, Positive Exposure on 109th Street on Museum Mile. You are all invited next time you're in New York City to come hang out with us. It's a multimedia gallery space, performance space, lots of activities are there, a very robust schedule. Right now we have an accessibility issue because of a failed elevator, but we're on a virtual platform at the moment, but about to transition back into online in person. COVID kind of moved those also to a virtual platform, but it's all of our frame films, and we have a sound studio and art going on, artists in residence and performance, and it's right again on Museum Mile at the northern part of Central Park. So you're all welcome to come hang out, come be part of this. Our exhibitions are all very, very public. This is an exhibition that we created with individuals from around the globe with Hunter syndrome. We launched it in Grand Central Station and went on to distribute a lot of pre-production in Poland, in Germany, and in Russia. So we brought the exhibitions to Warsaw and to the Berlin train station, and also to malls and throughout Russia. We do a lot of community-based exhibitions with hospitals, creating opportunities to see not just the patients any longer, but really telling their stories and sharing things that they want to share with their public, not just the fact that they're frequent flyers at that particular hospital, but they have other things that are important to them. So we create these exhibitions with the community to really have to highlight. This is an exhibition we created with the Resource Exchange in Colorado Springs that featured 65 individuals living with IDD. That actually was hosted in a mall in Colorado Springs that was supposed to be there for about 2 months, and wound up being there for over 2.5 years. They estimated over 2 million people went through. All the stars of the exhibition became docents, and they were holding community conversations and classes, etc. at this gallery. Very successful. Did the exact same thing in Australia. Closed us down during when we were in the Sunshine Coast during COVID, but now it's about to move to Melbourne and then to Sydney. George Eastman Museum, this is the UNESCO in Paris, an exhibition that we did in 27 different continents. That's the launch in Bangkok. Our very first billboard from the roads from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. A digital launch of Positive Exposure Europe. This is traveling through banks, all digital. It's kind of an amazing exhibit. And that's our philosophy: change, how you see how you change. An honor to be here with you today. I certainly hope that we get it. If you have any questions, please contact us, but come see us at positiveexposure.org. You can get information about the gallery, and we're all very accessible here. So if you have any questions or things that we can collaborate on together, I am in. My answer is yes. So thank you so much for your time, everybody. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Rick. That was great. Just so everybody knows, and everybody, the comments in the chat box are all positive, Rick. I don't know if you can see those now that you're not sharing, but just so that everybody on the conference understands, part of what, obviously there's positive exposure, and that's Rick's company, but for the clinician training grant, it's a grant that CP State has received, and through the grant, we're able to provide free training to clinicians, physicians, RNs, everybody that's basically on this call, both a clinical type through our online learning system, but then also Rick is doing these films that we will then be able to share with people all as well, so that you can share these with all of your clinicians, so that they will get to see what Rick is doing, as well as doing more, clinical based stuff. So we are thrilled that Rick is doing that with us, but also thrilled that he was able to do this with us today. So thank you so much. Oh, and there's links in the chat. They just put in where you can have your clinicians link into the clinician training grant to do some of the trainings that we already have on our Litmos, on our online service. Did I miss anything there, Bill or Tim?
No,
Okay.
just we have a lofty goal for signups, so please feel free to share this link with any of your colleagues. Thank you.
And we'll send more information out when we send follow up with the conference. For now, we're going to do another short